In this video, I'm going to go through my top philodendrons that I own and which ones are on my wish list. Hey everyone, Pablo from Learning here, and I wanted to make a video talking about my climbing philodendrons. Last time I made a video about moss balls and I made one with you, but I just wanted to show you some of my results of using those moss balls and also just let you know what I've thought about the plants that I own so far, which ones I love and which ones I think I would not get again. So this is my Philodendron Glorious. Glorious is a hybrid between Philodendron Gloriosum and Philodendron Melanochrysum. What I like the most about this is the first plant that I ever owned was the Gloriosum, and I fell in love with the velvety leaves and the heart shape and some of that venation that it had. I don't love crawling philodendrons because when they get a little big, it's really hard to keep them controlled and then get a little unruly. But what I love the most about Philodendron Gloriosum is the velvety and how fast it sizes up. And I think all of those amazing features from the Gloriosum are in the Glorious. This plant is my fastest growing, size-wise. It has been the one that sized up the most out of all of them. And I think this one basically just gets the verticality from Melanochrysum, allowing it to be on the actual moss ball. I bought it back in November, and it got here on, let's see if we can put it up, on this leaf. So this is the leaf that it had whenever it arrived to me. And then this is the first leaf that came out under my care. And as you can see from November, it has had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It has had 8 leaves. And in that time, I was able to get it from, let's see what this is like, the palm of my hand, something like that. I was able to get it to, like, look how big this is. Now look where the palm of my hand is. And this is not even like its final size. Obviously, it's gonna get much bigger. Philodendron Glorious has been very simple to maintain. I have it on a moss ball, just like I taught you. And this one is sitting on an Aroid mix with a little bit of leca on top. So the difficult part of this plant, I think, is getting the leaves to look nice. Because some of them have a very long petiole. As you can see, like this is like fairly long. Sometimes you have to get it a little bit close to the moss ball. And then I like to kind of like layer them in a way. So I'll push on the older leaf and then the newer one will just be on top, kind of like keeping it back. And usually that helps get the leaf to display really nice and also to push itself and all the others back a little bit. I have gotten a little bit of dry edges in this middle tier, but I think that was because it got a little too dry. It wasn't actually like the actual plant, it was my care. So this has been a great plant. I paid this much and it was worth every penny. If I could go, I would purchase Glorious like all over. The only downside that I see with this philodendron, and I feel like it's just the fact that it's growing so fast, this philodendron gets really top heavy because you see how much weight are in these leaves compared to how little it is here, and the base is just not wide enough to don't worry, I don't have the fan this time, so it's not gonna like chop up my plant. It doesn't have enough weight on it, and even if it does, I don't know, like I have one that is cement and it still will tip over. So this is one of those plants where the moss pole is just too heavy because the plant and the roots are too heavy. So it cannot stand on its own. It doesn't bend because it has like the support poles going through it, but it just tips over. So this is a great example of a plant that I would recommend that you attach to the wall with like one of those hooks and maybe like a zip tie, because you do not want to have your plant just fall over in the middle of the night or the day. So I definitely recommend you attaching this to the wall, or else, you know, you might risk it falling when the weight shifts. My next philodendron is going to be Philodendron Choco Red, or Rubrijuvenile. I don't know. It's written like this. This is basically Choco Red's official name. I paid this much for this plant, which was such a good deal. I thought it was like an add-on through the Rare Plant Fairy. And something that I love about this plant is just how cool it looks from the back when it's coming out. So as you can see, it has this really nice deep red sort of coloration in the back. But then you also get all of the nice, really, really round velvety leaves, which you do not get with the Glorious. The Glorious is a little bit more elongated. This one is straight up almost like a chunky little heart. The thing that I think made this plant so difficult for sellers or people to propagate when it was like really expensive is that it has almost like no internodal space. Like these leaves come out within not even an inch. It's like half an inch from each other, which has made this plant, as you can see, it's still on its first moss pole. So I would consider this one to be a more compact and a slower grower climbing philodendron, which might be useful for you depending on your situation. Um, this has been fairly easy for me to keep up. It has not been difficult in the sense of it drying out too fast or it being a little dramatic. I just think it's a slow grower. So I would just be prepared for it to grow a little low. And then you should know that also in this one, the petioles are very, very long compared to how big the leaf is at the moment. So you might need to like tie them back. Something that I found interesting about this plant is that the caterpillar turns really bright red and then it starts to get really, really like thick and then a leaf comes out. It doesn't get long, it gets like wide, which is something interesting compared to the other ones. And that also means that this plant is very difficult to move around or shape up because the stem is just so thick and so unmovable. So that's why I was basically attaching it to this moss pole and then just hoping that it doesn't lose its shape. Tell me, do you have Choco Red? What do you think? Has it been easy for you? You know, my conditions are fairly good for this type of plants, but I want to know, is it really like leggy for you? Because I've seen some that have very, very long petioles, but I just wasn't sure if it was just that one specimen needed more light. This is my Philodendron Splendid, which is a hybrid between Philodendron Melanochrysum and Philodendron Verrucosum. This is another hybrid that I definitely recommend. Not only is it my favorite climbing philodendron, I just think the leaves are absolutely beautiful. But I think it brings a lot of the qualities of Verrucosum without all of the downfalls of Verrucosum. So you get the really nice like color, almost like more brown, reddish, yellow whenever the leaf is kind of like developing. As it hardens, you get that whole sort of like experience. But this plant is not that finicky and it's a very fast grower. When I got it, size up, I got it back with same thing from the Rare Plant Fairy. This is how much I paid for it. But what I got it, I want to say it wasn't this. It was this leaf because you can see how it got like all jacked up. So just in a matter of a few months, it did 2, 4, 6, another 8 leaves. Actually 9, but I'll tell you what happened. And it has sized up to this size, which is the biggest one. Unfortunately, this plant is the one that I used to add the extension during my moss pole tutorial, and then I looked away and it fell backwards and the whiplash just completely snapped off its growth point. So I'm putting a video right now because that's easier to show. But basically what now I have happening with this plant is the main growth point is gone. It's in a cup over there. Maybe it'll, I don't know, no hope, but it's gone. And it activated 2 new growth points. So the first one is right here in this auxiliary node right here. And then the second one is the actual top node that would have to activate anyway. So it is very likely that this plant is just about to break into 2 separate branches. I'm not sure if the leaves are going to really size down and then it'll be difficult to size up, or if it's just gonna keep pushing them in a similar size and then continue growing and skip a beat. I will definitely keep you posted. This has been the easiest philodendron for me. It has been able to root very easily. I think it air layers very, very well. I mean, you can see all the noodles that it produces. I think this plant is pretty chill, at least to me. If you've had issues with it, please let me know down below. When I got this plant, it snapped off during shipping. So I ended up with 3 plants. And the main one, that is this one, I actually had no roots. It was just a stem. And I just attached to a moss pole, air layered and prayed. And it worked out really, really well. If you only had to choose one climbing philodendron out of my entire video, I think this one is the one that I would pick. Up next is my Philodendron Melanochrysum. This is one of the parents for both the Splendid and for the Glorious. So this will have the characteristics that we love. It's climbing, it has the velvety leaves, it has the heart shape, but I think it's not the easiest of plants. Compared to the two hybrids, I think this one is much more difficult. While out of all of them, this was the one that grew the most height-wise. It took a long time to begin to size up its leaves compared to the other one. So let's take a look together at sort of like the leaves that it's had so far. Oh shit, I actually hit the fan. All right, let's try to not destroy my plant with the fan this time. So this is the leaf that it had whenever it got to me. So this is a leaf that it had before it got to me. And then I want to say the first one that was with me broke. So technically this would be the first leaf that I got under its care. From there, it's gotten 1, 2, 3. It has gotten almost 15 leaves, which is almost twice as much as the other ones, which I was very impressed by because I found it to be very difficult the first time I purchased this plant many years ago. But this one has been the most difficult to keep pretty. While they're all sitting in the same conditions, this one has definitely not been forgiving of either overwatering or underwatering. It is in an Aroid mix, and I mostly just water through the moss pole. So you still get this crunchiness whenever it has gotten a little too dry. Like it's the only plant that you see some of the edges are kind of yellowy, at least in the bottom part. Let's see if I can show you the top without it being on a video because it's kind of, honestly, it's my fault. It needs an extension and I just haven't gotten around it because it's so big that, uh, like it's two extensions from hitting the ceiling. Oh, let's see if I can do this without breaking this plant. No. There. We're doing. All right, this is the best we can do. So you have to look at the footage, but basically you can see how big it has gotten. Like now they're about the size of my leaf. And they ended up growing very, very close together. You can see in the footage how all of them basically cover the entire moss pole because they overlap each other, which I think is really beautiful. But it took so many leaves before it started to size up that I'm not sure what I'm doing next. So my ceilings are 9 feet, and this thing has to be closer to 7. But so I need to fix the moss pole because it's a little wobbly. It needs another rod and just to fix some stuff in the base. This is another one that I need to keep attached to the wall or else it will tip over. There's nothing I can do. This plant is so top heavy. It is sitting on a cement planter, which is what prevents it from, you know, fully tipping over, but it will bend. So this is what I was saying, that you cannot trust your moss poles to not tip over. Even if the base is heavy enough to support it, the rest of the moss pole is still going to like lean. So this is how much I paid for this plant, which I thought it was a great deal. That's why I purchased it. I don't know if this is one plant that I would personally recommend. I have it, so I love it, and it's fine. But I think if you just want to have like one of those heart-shaped velvety climbing philodendrons, probably some hybrids are going to be easier and give you more bang for your buck and just be more compact. Up next is my Philodendron Buono. This is a beautiful specimen. Look how pretty that leaf is. And this one up here too, and another one that has a lot of white is coming out with it. So I have some mixed feelings about this plant. This is the same philodendron that I got from tissue culture back in, I'm not sure. This is how much I paid for it, and that was the date that I got it, I think last fall. It took a while for me to deflask it, and then I think I showed it in some videos that I posted, like the update of my entire collection. I think I talked through it. So it has now gotten a lot bigger, as you can see, and then I attached it to a moss pole. This plant is in this list because I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it when it gets a lot bigger. As you can see, some of the specimens that grow from this plant are massive, and they continue to have these huge, beautiful leaves. So I'm not sure if it's gonna get too big for me to like it, and I might need to get rid of it. It has been a very fast grower. It is still sitting fully in semi-hydro. Ooh, look at all the roots. Look at that. All roots. So it is sitting in semi-hydro, and it has, of course, just grown some roots in there. It is not attached to the moss pole too much. It has a few roots that are going through, but it's not going directly from the actual stem. It's more like some of the roots were getting really long, and I pushed them into the moss pole to try to like get them in there. So it has not quite attached yet and sized up because of the moss pole, but it has still sized up fairly well. Now, I will warn you that I don't like Paraiso Verde, spoiler alert. But This plant I put along with Paraiso Verde because I think they were kind of misleading, and they have such a similar look between the two of them that I feel like the commentary belongs together. So I feel like this plant is straight up lying to all of us. It it is not actually variegated. Well, I guess it is temporarily. I guess it is temporarily variegated, and what I mean by that is when I saw pictures of this a few years back and I added it into my wish list, it would have these beautiful bright white leaves. And whenever someone would talk about them, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's incredible because they don't turn brown. A lot of variegation will turn brown and kind of burn. But not this one. People were like, oh, this one is great. So I was like, oh, I want to have it. I bought it, and then I got my first full moon, and I realized why this plant does not crisp. It's because the variegation is not actually variegated, it will turn green. It's sort of like a variegation that burns almost like an orange prince, in which is just turning into the green leaf. Very similar. So as you can see up here, I'm just going to talk through it and just show the video, which is easier. Some of the leaves down here have look at this one. This one was fully white, and now it turned into that. I guess a better comparison would be the Philodendron Florida Ghost, in which the white appears and then it turns green. That's exactly what happens with this plant. So some of the leaves that had the most beautiful variegation, it kind of like went away. It just turns into this mud green. It has been creating a few new babies underneath, so we'll have more to pick from. But I just found that to be a little disappointing about this plant. And if you're looking for a plant because of its white color, I don't know if this is the plant for you. If you're looking for a plant that has a very interesting leaf variegation, it has a journey because the white goes into like a green, and then it gets massive fairly slow, then this is the plant for you. Now let's talk about the plants in my wish list. Actually, a lot of these plants I, in a way, already own because they're really, really small, but I want them big, I want them attached, I want them climbing, which is why I added them into the wish list part. The first one is Philodendron Serpens. Serpens is one of those plants that has a cool name because it literally looks like snake tongues, and it has a very interesting leaf morphology with like the heart shape pointing up, and then all the leaves are sort of like upward, and it has this hairy petiole, and it has some very interesting colors to it. So of course I wanted to have that plant. I purchased a tissue culture 5-pack, and then I struggled a lot. That plant was very difficult to size up. I literally have 3 that are just this like tiny little leaf that's been with me almost like 8 months. Super disappointing. I ended up getting so like over this plant that I just threw the tissue culture thingies into my prop box. I was like, whatever, live or die. And actually what ended up happening, even though it took just as long, the leaves in there started to actually size up and the plant became an actual plantlet. So what I think makes this plant extremely difficult is the humidity that it requires. Because I'm in Florida, we're sitting on a strong 55 to 60, even higher, you know, depending on the AC indoors. And this plant was not happy. So I think this plant either needs to be like 80 plus or in a cabinet that's humid. I'm not sure. I have a few of them. I hope that they size up. I hope that they survive. But if I could, I probably would have just purchased a more established, bigger plant of these so I could like play with it a little bit more rather than just waiting for it to like size up. The second one is a little bit of a heartbreak. It is the Philodendron Joepii Variegated. This is one that I actually purchased. If you saw my tissue culture contaminated, I talked about it, I unplasted it, and it was doing really, really well. And then it was sizing up really slow, and my bright ass thought, oh, you know what, maybe if we put a dome on it, it'll help, because the more humidity that it has, the quicker it will size up, right? Remember the serpents, similar sort of thought process with me. So what I think happened was, I think a droplet fell from the condensation in the dome onto the actual plant, and I did not catch it. I didn't figure out what was happening until the next day. I realized that the newest growth was kind of like brown, and when I looked at it, the crown had basically turned brown, while the bottom of the plant, the tiny plant, the stem was still kind of green. So what I'm assuming happened is that the growth point ended up with water sitting on it, and because you had the dome, I don't know, I'm assuming that just got like crown rot. like really quickly. So I'm really disappointing on that because I had paid very little for such a nice, unicorn plant. I had really high hopes. So I still want that plant. I think it's beautiful. I don't really care for the one without the variegation because I think it's a difficult plant regardless. So yeah, I'm bummed out. I hope I get it. I don't think it's gonna survive. But I hope the next one that I get is able to survive, and that's definitely my wish list. The next one is one that I want to say has been on everybody's wish list forever, and that is Philodendron Ilsmanii, spelled like that. This plant has always been very expensive, and I've seen some specimens that are just like incredible. And I don't know if it's like the diversity in the genetics or like the phenotypes that create some of the differences, but I have seen a variety of looks for this plant, but I thought all of them looked really good. Like I have not seen a well-grown, like nice looking plant that I did not like the leaf shape or the leaf sort of like colors and stuff like that. So I really want this plant. I'm hoping that it lowers, I'm hoping that it enters into tissue culture. So far I have not found it, but it's definitely my wish plant because I just love this plant. And the last plant in my wish list is going to be a variegated one. This is just because I saw it when I was researching for this video, and I just thought it was incredible. I had only seen it before on Facebook, but I guess, it's starting to multiply or more people are finding it. And that is Philodendron Verrucosum variegated. I mean, look at that. Look at the shape of the leaf. Look at the pinkiness. Look at the interesting sort of like camo pattern that it has. I can only imagine how difficult this plant is, not only to purchase or obtain because I have not seen them, like, or anything, but I already know Verrucosum is a difficult plant to keep. I can only imagine once you add the variegation to it, how difficult this plant becomes. But I do love a challenge, and if I were to able to get one in a reasonable price, keyword is reasonable. Y'all know this people be tripping with the new plants. That is when maybe I would purchase it. I don't know, maybe it's like a long shot because of how rare this plant is, but it's definitely on my wish list. And now there are some climbing philodendrons that I have owned and I still own, but I don't think I would get again because I don't like them. So the first one is going to be my Paraiso Verde. I threw it outside. It was getting super laggy. I want to say this was, look at that Melanochrysum, how fast it and how big it got. The Paraiso Verde has to be the plant that had the longest internodal space ever. It was like half my arm in between the leaves, and they get so long and it's just so messy. And the leaves turn dark green. Oh no, we love the lime green. Yes, we love the lime green. But guess what? You're not gonna get the lime green unless it's like 80 degrees nonstop. I'm not capping. Inside the house is literally between 75 and 78-ish. And outside, it has already been like super hot throughout the summer, and the leaves are still turning dark green. Now they get this weird look in which, I'm showing you footage, in which it's kind of like lime green, but you get all these like streaks of dark, and then you have some of the growth point underneath. This plant is a mess. I have done some stuff to try to get it to bush up by air layering it the entire thing to mixed results. So far, just the bottom part of it is actually growing and creating new shoots. I'm hoping that more leaves create more diversity in the colors because so far I'm not really happy with it. The second one is going to be Philodendron Painted Lady. I think this is just my own personal issue in which I just have not had good luck with this plant. I've owned this plant for a few years. I have not gotten to size up. I struggled to get it on a moss pole. I got a second one in a swap and I put them together to get a little more bushy, and now both are just struggle buzzing. So I'm not really sure what's happening with this plant. I wanted it to be like the cheap version of an orange marmalade or something like that, but it's nothing like that. I don't like Painted Lady. You can see it, look at it. I think it's on me. I've seen some really cool ones that are climbing, and when they size up, those leaves are really nice, but I just have not been able to size up my Painted Lady quick enough or effectively enough. I put it a lot closer over there. I put it a lot closer to the upper growth light, which is super strong, and now the leaves are starting to get oranger. So what I'm thinking is maybe it just needs a buttload of light. Maybe. I don't know. If you've had success sizing up Painted Lady, please let me know what you did. If it's just luck or you just bought it like big, like also let me know. Because am I crazy? I just struggle so much. This plant will not size up for its life, and it has just been a frustrating plant to own on a moss pole. The next other plant that I probably would not get is the red emerald. This was also a swap, and it's a nice plant. I don't have any issue with it. It grows fairly nicely. It has a beautiful stem. It has nice, really deep green leaves, and the green and the red gives it this nice aesthetic Christmassy feel to it, and it was super easy to attach to a moss pole. It was the fastest one to start sizing up, so it's been a nice plant, except it gets really big really fast. Like mine just got out of control so quickly. I had to like throw it in the corner. It's right here, you see it. Whoop. I had to throw it in the corner because it was just getting too tall, and I've just been neglecting it so it doesn't size up. If that makes sense. I'm hoping to bring it to like a swap or something, and maybe someone will want it. It's a great plant. I already have the variegated version with the strawberry shake, so I don't really care for that plant as much. The next one is my Philodendron Strawberry Shake, and it's not like I don't love it. It's just that I don't think my specimen is the cutest anymore. If you know back, I have a video about the care for Philodendron Strawberry Shake. I followed everything that I did in the video, and I think it worked out really well. This plant attached very nicely to the moss pole when I gave it to it. Actually, I air layered how I taught you guys in my moss pole video right in the middle, and that ended up activating 2 growth points. So now I have 2 separate growth points for this plant happening at the base, and that allowed me to see what that node variegation would look like, being so close to this leaf, which I was hoping that it would be replicated across the plant. Unfortunately, it has gotten a lot of light, which is why it has this all the leaves still in there, and it has been happy. The leaves are very green, and the variegation is very sectoral in the corners. So I get like mostly green leaves, except all of them have a little patch of variegation somewhere. So I never know if I'm supposed to chop it, trim it. Like technically the leaves are not green. Like there is variegation on every single leaf. It's just not as variegated as I would like it to be. So right now I'm just waiting for this 3rd growth point to activate and see what happens from it. So it's an okay plant in the sense of like, I love this plant. It's so beautiful. It's been such a pleasure to grow. I just wish mine just wasn't as green. It's also sitting on semi-hydro, and you can see all of these noodle roots that it has just been like really happy with it. Oh, look how pretty the back looks in that angle. Oh, wow. And then my Florida Ghost, I love it. It's a beautiful specimen, but it struggled a lot getting on that moss pole because I had to remove so many of the roots that were root bound and just rotted or really soft. So I removed a lot of roots, and that threw it into a lot of shock. So for the past month, that plant has just been in like a stasis. Like it doesn't improve, it doesn't get worse, it's just like there. So right now I'm just sort of like, it's okay. But that I hope once it establishes as a climbing plant, I will be able to feature it. So there you have it. Those are my top philodendron, my wish list, and the plants that I would not purchase again. Tell me, which ones do you own? Which ones do you want? And which ones did I miss? Comment down below, and then YouTube thinks that you should be watching this video next.